Hello, everybody, and welcome to SkyFF, Planet SkyFF, I should say. The world where everything revolves around £50,000. 1 week further on in Sky, James.
Yeah.
How many points?
Oh, crap. I'm not even ready. You didn't even say like prep or nothing. You just started talking.
It is the same time every week that we're here.
Yeah, got ya.
I ended up on
56.
65 points in the end, which I'm pretty happy with. Gave me a game week rank of 16k. It's still not great, but I'll take it. It's better than I've been scoring recently. I'm up to 45,000 roughly overall.
You're getting there, mate.
42,700, which is better.
I saw there was a question in the tweet I sent out saying, what's a good rank at the moment?
Who knows?
Not Suji's.
Nah.
Probably not mine either, which is now just inside the top 15k.
You think 5,000 at the moment? Top 5,000, top 2,000?
I think that's where the guys would be wanting to be at. It's all very little bit dependent on how many transfers as well. So I'm not too bothered about that with having only used 2. But I think I'm about to fire some bombs.
You're going to make some transfers.
Yeah.
I had a very, very good Saturday. And then after that, there was literally nothing. I think a lot of people were in a similar boat because the big hitters in the United-Liverpool game, or mainly Liverpool assets, didn't perform. And then, obviously, Arsenal assets didn't perform on the Monday. But I ended up with clean sheets from Dean, Soyuncu, Ederson, and an assist from Gilbert, all on the Saturday. And captaincy returns from Vardy, which meant, Saturday was looking pretty. No returns from Sterling and De Bruyne or Mount. But then Pepe, Alexander-Arnold, and Aubameyang got me the grand total of nothing.
Essentially, our returns from the weekend were exactly the same.
Nice.
Barring the fact that I don't own Gilbert.
Yeah.
But the other players, you've got Dean as well, haven't you?
I've got Luka Dean, yeah.
Yeah, Ederson, Dean, Soyuncu, and I think we both made quite a brave call in captaining Jamie Vardy over the City assets.
Yeah.
It was a right touch from me.
Paid off in the end.
Aguero didn't play at all, and you've got Sterling, who
correct
obviously did get an assist, and I mean, on a different day, he gets quite a few there in fairness.
Yeah.
But it was a brave call to go with Vardy in the home fixture, I think.
But yeah, this is not a bad week compared to the FPL week. This was a much, much better week. Much, much happier with this. And on we go into game week 12, I think it is for Sky. You just dropped a bomb there. You're going to make a lot of transfers. A lot being a couple, a few.
I think
Trent's ill, so he's flagged.
I think I've worked out a plan of 4 transfers over the next 3 game weeks. I'll come back onto what they are near the end. One of the things I wanted to discuss today was this idea that I'd kind of pre-mentioned on some of the other pods early in the week in previewing this is the idea of particularly Jamie Vardy, but also Leicester assets in between these 2 fixtures they have coming up. Starting Friday night at Southampton and then quite a gap between the Sunday fixture away at Crystal Palace.
Yep.
I incorrectly commented last week, thank you, it is my cap plan for pointing it out, that I could go to Pookie for 2 weeks and have the Pookie captaincy that against Watford. That's obviously incorrect. But I still think there is plenty of scope here to dive in and off Vardy, or off and in, whichever way you want to describe that. Because there's a number of players we can target for 2-week punts. And I wanted to highlight...
Because they're playing 2 games in between Leicester's 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, the cost...
For new listeners and people that don't get it.
Yeah. The cost to use, obviously, the 2 transfers to do it.
To go in and out,
I don't know what you'd really want in terms of a return off for those 2 games. I think you'd probably want to go for a player that you're going to captain at least once during that period.
Yep.
I wanted to just highlight a couple of teams who I think have a couple of good fixtures who might interest some. Now, I think I'm probably going to attack this a little bit from an FPL perspective, particularly when I mentioned the name Brighton and Hove Albion. Mm-hmm. At the moment, nobody in the top 1,000 players owns Connolly or Maupay. And I don't know, with 2 home fixtures, Everton and Norwich, who are 2 of the poorest sides away from home. Everton are normally shocking away from home. Am I attacking that, if I was to look at one of those 2, am I attacking that from a FPL standpoint, where I can get them in for the 2 fixtures, whereas I don't know if it doesn't work here, because for example, you won't captain them.
No, you definitely wouldn't.
In this, you'd go Maupay. rather than trying to save the money on Conley. You'd go for Morpay. But I wouldn't see me, even with Norwich at home, the second of those two fixtures, I wouldn't see me having the bravery to captain him, I don't think.
Well, who else is playing that day? I guess that's the $1 million question.
Well, that's what we need to look at. Another team that's obviously got two good fixtures is West Ham. Now, yeah, I just think you're in a bad mood at the moment because you've had a couple of disappointing results in a row and missed opportunities. Newcastle at home, Sheffield United at home. Sheffield United first.
Yeah.
Two sides who are stubborn defensively. And I wanted to attack this from the perspective of not necessarily looking at, say, Allaire, but would you consider Diop, for example? You'll have a lot of the ball in these two games. You're playing two sides who will sit very defensive, try and frustrate, I think. There's a possibility there for 2 clean sheets. And I don't think we'd recommend making a move for the goalkeeper.
No.
Unless it was a longer term move.
No.
He's quite cheap, 6'2", I think.
Okay.
But I just wonder if it's safe for Siyunku owners, if there's a little bit money hanging in the bank, whether that's something they would consider to go to a Issa Diop for 2 weeks or so. Because I think if I mentioned West Ham more for that than the attacking, I think that's the most viable one. If somebody's looking at that from a Siyunku perspective and thinking, I want to come off, I think if there's money in the bank, you might also want to consider Yarmolenko for that role if you're a Maddison owner. And of course, you don't have to go to players in the same position if you're set up in the right way, right? So if you're on a 4-3-3, for example, obviously you can go Siyunku, if you've got the money, Siyunku to Yarmolenko for the 2 games and come back. And that's one of the moves I'm considering a little bit. Another one is United, whether we'd consider propelling someone like Rashford in, who then there might be the possibility that you would consider captaining him at Norwich on Sunday. I don't think on the Saturday the week after against Bournemouth. The problem is, whoever you're going to put in, you're probably looking at it from you want to captain them this Saturday, I would say.
Saturday or Sunday?
Yeah, either. Or this
Because
game
surely
week anyway.
if you're keeping Vardy's on the Friday. So,
if you're going to go back to the Leicester talent on the
Sunday.
following Sunday, you rule out Palace, who are playing Leicester, Everton and Spurs from this conversation. And you're gonna captain a Man City asset against Southampton the following week. I think nearly all of us have got Man City players are going to captain this Saturday and Sunday.
Yep.
So that does lead us to potentially look at players who are going to play this coming Sunday, and obviously United do fall into that category. It would still be a massive call to captain a Rashford, I think, over, say, Aubameyang, who will probably be my captain at home to Palace on Sunday, or a Mane or Salah against Spurs. And therefore, does it really mean that the only target here should be Manchester City? So say you've got Aguero or Sterling, and you've got a little bit hanging about, perhaps we should just be looking to fire the 2 in, and then once we know the team, that's who we're captaining. We make the decision from there. If one was missing, you captain the other one, right?
For the Villa game or for the Southampton
game? For the Villa game, we've got the benefit on Saturday of knowing the Man City team before
Correct.
we have
It's
to
the early
confirm our
kickoff on
team,
Saturday.
which is a massive benefit. And so I think, to kind of overview that, the move is to get in a Man City player.
In addition to the ones you already have.
Correct.
So David Silva could be a potential.
Obviously, it doesn't have to be. We're using Vardy as the case here because obviously, I think he's not that highly owned.
No, it's surprising because we thought that week that they played on the Sunday that people would steam into him, but they didn't.
He's in 7% of teams, and if you remember, before they came into this run of fixtures, we were astonished at how low his ownership was. 7% still low, but 17.4% of one of the top 1,000 teams do own him.
Yeah,
and I think that's a little bit telling. Now you're getting towards a sixth of players owning him who are at serious level, I would say. And I think that number's probably larger if you look in sort of maybe 2 to 20k or so. So I'm looking to move Vardy on after captaining him Friday night against Southampton. But I've worked out a plan which means I'm not going to bring a forward in. I don't own Kevin De Bruyne.
And you're thinking you want him?
I think I'm going to go Vardy to Kevin De Bruyne.
You've got the money in the bank to be able to do that.
Yes, I do. I have a little bit spare at the moment, 2.3 million in the bank. I've mentioned a couple of times before about going Dean to De Bruyne and being just a little bit short. This manoeuvre allows me to make a confirmed decision. Then if Aguero's not in the team, I think I'll just captain De Bruyne.
Yeah.
Go with it. I think De Bruyne is probably an error on my part for not having him in this Sky team sooner. Being a little bit concerned about that price in the midfield area. And I think there are longer term fixtures coming up for City once they get to kind of Liverpool in the last game week before the international break and beyond, where perhaps holding an Aguero or Sterling beyond the Villa and Southampton fixtures isn't quite so enticing. And I think when the game's there that you want to go on City, you could still go on De Bruyne.
Yeah.
If you're kind of struggling. And I think, again, after that fixture, you're going to want to get Liverpool players in. And so that leads me to think that probably longer term, I'm not going to have Aguero or Sterling, certainly in the autumn period here. And therefore, De Bruyne will still give me some sort of attacking City coverage, which we're all going to need. And there's also the reliability from him that, 95% of the time he's going to start.
Yeah,
as well.
he will, especially with their current league position. Interesting to see where your mindset's at. Mine is... I don't have any problem. First and foremost, when you're looking at your team, it's like, do I have any problems that I need to fix, or are there any problem areas? The only person that's flagged, and he'll be flagged in most teams, is Trent, because he's got 56% ownership in the top 1K and 32 overall. It's illness, right? So you're going to assume that he should be all right by the weekend. We spoke last week or the week before. I don't remember now. All the days merge into one about Luca Dean being a potential issue and one that we wanted to move on based on value. I mean, they've just kept a clean sheet, so no panic stations necessarily there. Soyuncu is so cheap. Gilbert's now at 4.5, proving to be a great asset. A couple of clean sheets and a couple of assists. There's just no value at 4.5. You're not going to get any better value anywhere, really. So
he's playing, so you're not
exactly.
moving off that.
So I'm not moving away from him. De Bruyne and Mount in midfield. Aubameyang and Sterling up front are solid. Aubameyang I need for the captaincy cover for the Arsenal matches, which are upcoming, so I'm not jumping on and off him. And Jamie Vardy is the one that you've just mentioned as where we can manipulate and manoeuvre. So the only person that really I want to move on is Pepe. I don't need double Arsenal coverage in Pepe and Aubameyang. He's 9.8 million and I've got 0.6 in the bank. So I've got quite a bit of money to play around with here. I think from what you've mentioned about moving away from Vardy after Friday night, I like the idea of Rashford. I think Norwich and Bournemouth as the two fixtures that you're going to get out of him are decent fixtures. And he's priced only a little bit more than Vardy. I think Vardy's 10.7 and Rashford, is he 10.8 from memory? I'll look that up.
You do that.
But other than that, it's only Pepe that I want to potentially move away from. And I'd like to move from Pepe to someone that is reliable for a long period of time between now and Christmas as well. So that's where
they
my
have
focus is.
5 good fixtures in a row, United. My concern with that is
10-8 confirmed.
Yeah, what I elaborated on our main podcast on Monday night is that the best we've seen of them so far this season has been in games where they've been able to counter-attack.
Yeah.
I'm not sure them fixtures are there.
Yeah, true.
Do you captain a Rashford, for example, this week at Norwich over, like I said, Aubameyang or Salah Mane? I don't think you do.
I would rather captain Rashford than Aubameyang. I know it sounds bonkers, but Palace are a tough team. It's going to be a tough game for Arsenal. And they've shown how useless they are when they have to break down a difficult team against Sheffield United. So
the third of the 5 fixtures that United have appeals when they play Brighton at home on the Sunday, which is the same day Liverpool play Man City. And then obviously you've got the Sunday after the international break where it's the only game away to Sheffield United. So you certainly
but it's irrelevant if you're moving back to Vardy after 2 games.
Well, that's part the point, right? You're too late there. So I'm thinking of making another move on Sunday to get a forward in that's playing on Sunday. And I think this will surprise people. At the moment, my plan is to get Teemu Pukki in.
Pukki!
And the person that I would bring him in for is Luca Dean. because if I make that move from Vardy to De Bruyne, I'm now left with 2 up front. I'll be 4-4-2. So I can go Dean to Pukki. Dean's someone I'd happily move on. Everton play at Brighton on Saturday. It's Spurs the week after, and then they've got Southampton and Norwich. But then beyond those two, the fixtures firm up, and Everton have a really tough 5 fixtures. So sooner or later, Dean's coming out anyway. If I sell him Saturday, I'm going to obviously get the extra game out of Pukki. I can then run him through Teemu Pukki for 3 games, which will be United at home, Brighton away, and then the Friday night captaincy against Watford. The plan in the meantime, for me, third transfer, will be to sell Aguero for Jamie Vardy the day after City play Southampton. So get these 2 Aguero home fixtures. Sell Aguero before they go to Liverpool. Bring Vardy back in for the Sunday at Palace. And I will just about have enough money left to then move after Pukki plays Watford on the Friday night to move from Teemu Pukki to Sadio Mane.
So you'll end up, just to be clear for the listeners, that 4 move, I don't know what the word for it is, James, like mega move. First,
it's over 3 game weeks. It's not that mega. That's my structured plan at the moment.
First up, Jamie Vardy goes after this Friday night to give you Kevin De Bruyne, who's playing on the Saturday.
Yep.
Once that's happened, after Everton have played, Luca Dean goes, and in comes Teemu Pukki, who gives you captaincy coverage a couple of weeks on a Friday.
Yep.
Pukki's in. Once Pukki's in and you've got your games out of Aubameyang goes.
No, Aubameyang's staying.
Oh, sorry. Aguero goes.
Aguero to Vardy.
After the home games. Yep. Vardy comes back in. And it'll give you enough money to get rid of Pukki, who you've had your 2 or 3 games out of, to Sadio Mane.
Yep.
There we go. That's some planning.
Yeah. I stayed up late when I got home from Spurs last night.
Do you get any additional games out of it?
Well,
does it give you better captaincy coverage?
It's that. I mean, I'd only captain Pukki in that Watford fixture. So, I mean, doubling up there feels a little bit like maybe I'm kind of getting 4 fixtures for the double points there rather than 3. I get rid of Vardy but don't lose anything. I've got, essentially, you'd say I'm getting 2 extra fixtures of Kevin De Bruyne, but actually, if you think about it, it'll be 2 extra fixtures of Aguero, although he's already in my team, because that's the player who's going to leave, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're looking at it from that perspective and going, 2 games of Aguero at home to Villa, Southampton, probably captaincy on both of them. I've got the blessing in one of them. I can know if he's playing or not.
Yeah.
I feel it's a fairly strong strategy, and then I'll be coming back onto Liverpool attacking assets, which a lot of people will still be on. Admittedly, I'm coming back on for Mane at home to Man City. I'd captain him in that.
Yeah.
Rather than try and force a United. There might be an argument that I'd maybe go Wan-Bissaka at home to Brighton. So Wan-Bissaka's going to stay in as my United coverage for those 2 decent Sunday fixtures that United have. I'm quite happy with that. I think, this it's a roundabout way of doing it. I'd be really interested to hear what people's thoughts are. What I've tried to do is look at it where I'm manoeuvring formation to get the players that I want as well and eke out the value that gets me to a position that I'd be happier with. I mean, I must say I'm still leaving Harry Wilson in there, who I'd like to get out. Mm-hmm. But they've still got a couple of decent fixtures. He's still playing at the moment for Bournemouth. And John McGinn's obviously walking now into some difficult fixtures. And I have a concern over McGinn, which is worth kind of picking up the 5 minutes or so we spoke about it on the main podcast Monday night about the slight alteration to Villa's formation, which is now meaning that Grealish is playing higher up the pitch, and it might be having a negative impact on McGinn.
Grealish is very cheap in this as well, at 7.9.
But then we spoke previously about McGinn and obviously looked at the fact that he'd scored at Tottenham, he'd scored at Arsenal. He's not frightened to have a shot. So McGinn is probably still as likely to return as Grealish in these higher
tougher
profile,
games.
Difficult fixtures, I would say. But there's a case to coming off. The problem with McGinn then as well, though, is you're looking at that Monday night game at home to Newcastle and thinking, at the end of November, I'm kind of already covered there. For me, who doesn't own Gilbert, for example.
Yep.
So I may even make further moves to adjust something in that area. I'm keen to see what happens with Cantwell in the next couple of weeks. With Obviously, Stiepermann was left out for Norwich at the weekend, but Anel Hernandez is back fit. We don't really know if that's going to cut Cantwell's place in the team, or if he might even revert to a more central number 10 position. And we also don't know if that's going to be a positive or negative impact on him as well.
Yep.
Because Cantwell's obviously cheap as, you could, if he was definitely going to stay in there at number 10, I think you could come back down to that from a McGinn or Harry Wilson, that kind of area.
Mm. A lot of people asking questions on Twitter as well. We did ask for a few questions, and to keep it within our allotted time of 30 minutes, like we like to stay within that extra time window, we should cover off a few Twitter questions. What are your thoughts?
Yes.
So there are a few questions here. One's coming in from Dan Cox and a couple of others here who say Heskibo, FPL Heskibo, and also Adam Byram, who are all talking about how far out have we planned our transfers now that the December and January fixtures are there. So the answer from me is nothing. I haven't planned at all. That's not to say that I won't be. I will be setting up a spreadsheet and figuring out what I'm going to do in terms of captaincy cover and listening back to this pod. Although I've got James's strategy pretty firmly, I understand where he's going with it. But my thought is to plan out up until the end of January loosely, and if not the players, then the teams. Because there's no price fluctuations and differentials to worry about. So obviously always have a plan B as well as a plan A, but I think it's feasible and sensible to plan all the way up to your next overhaul.
Yes, I don't disagree. I haven't done that yet myself. I think the one thing that
3 weeks has taken about 2 hours to plan.
Well, so. The one thing I noticed off the TV fixtures was there wasn't too many that made you think, oh, that's a horrible single game day. Like, there's ones with, City at Wolves on that Thursday night, on the 27th of December.
Yep.
You've got Arsenal at West Ham on the Monday night in early December.
10th, I think
there's not too many that have stood out. That have got, I think Palace played Brighton in mid-December on a Monday night. I think that's the 16th maybe. But probably you might not, you maybe wouldn't bother with that. It's worth saying that Palace have an amazing December run of fixtures. So you might at the start of December want to look at Crystal Palace. I'd probably look at them defensively. I just think
PVA or something, but he's still expensive.
Zaha is very expensive in this.
Yep.
You might want to look at that, maybe even like a Gator for like the cover through December or something.
Yeah, possibly.
Because they're all right defensively. Perhaps Gary Cahill on that. I've not looked at Palace in terms of their price and that. There's certainly one to look at coming towards the fixtures kind of turn from them. End of November, I think a Burnley away fixture, and then December's a very good run for them. So, but I've not looked too far ahead. You definitely can plan all your transfers. Something will fuck you up, like an injury or a suspension or something. It's an inevitable. But I needed to, for me personally, look at what I'm doing to try and make some immediate gains. I think it's time for me now. It's mid-October and I've made 2 transfers.
To ramp it up.
By the time we get to the next international break, if I go through with this plan, which I'm not 100% sure of yet, then I'm going to be on 6. And I think a lot of other people are going to be well into their double figures by that point. So I'm still going to probably be behind people
the curve
in their transfer thinking. So I think now's right for me to
ramp it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep. Couple other areas of focus. One is Spurs over Christmas. Lee Bishop says, how many Spurs players will you have for Christmas? And there are a couple of other players saying that Kane might be a good captaincy option over the Christmas period as well. Any thoughts? That was Lee Williams. Tottenham have some good captaincy coverage in the next month or so with Kane and Son.
I mean, certainly not.
From an FPL point of view, you've poo-pooed them.
Yeah, I mean, there's runs of games like, Brighton, Norwich, Southampton between Boxing Day and New Year's Day really appeals. There's obviously still some good home fixtures, Sheffield United, Bournemouth, Burnley.
But none of them are single game days. That's the only thing.
No.
So you always have another option.
I wouldn't be overly fussed. I think part of that is possibly looking at, the best captaincy option next Sunday when I'm going to go back to Vardy probably is Harry Kane, but I'd much prefer Leicester's,
not wasting a transfer on it at all.
Leicester's fixtures. It could be that when I come back to that kind of Aguero to Vardy move that I might reassess that and look at it being Harry Kane. But I think I'd rather have Vardy in for Leicester at home to Arsenal than Kane at home to Sheffield United at the moment. That's how I feel about it. I know even the two fixtures on that particular Sunday as well. So the thing with Spurs is, and I alluded to it on Tottenham yesterday, is there's no consistency in terms of the tactics or the style of play at the moment for you to feel any conviction and confidence in making those kind of moves. Now, by the time we get to December, that may very well have changed and we might be playing a regular system. You know, that team that turned up last night were complete wank, mate. They obviously...
I was going to say to you, give us 30 seconds, because obviously I've got Son in FPL and there are listeners to the Sky Fantasy show that care about FPL, and you've been get rid of all your Spurs players, get rid of all your Spurs players, get rid of all your Spurs players, and now obviously you've gone and won 5-1.
Well, for FPL, I don't really want to cover it too much now because there's some listeners who probably aren't interested. But if you're going to hold one, it's Son. Like, Son's the only one to be considering.
I have Son. We talked about my transfers, and I can easily move from Son to Kevin De Bruyne rather than Mahrez. It means that I have to piss about with finding money anywhere. But I look at it and I'm like, Son's been so consistent over the seasons, and he's such an explosive and reliable player. You've had a few bad games. I don't think it justifies getting rid of Son yet.
He also won't play against teams like he played against last night. They obviously...
Were they that bad?
Yeah, they were awful, mate. They'll probably beat us in 2 weeks. Different atmosphere out in Belgrade, yeah, for certain.
Hostile.
They haven't watched Spurs at all.
Right.
I don't think. I think they turned up and went, yeah, we're going to go and play our way.
They probably saw your results and thought we don't need to watch this.
Well, it's possible. Yeah, but everybody that's particularly games at Tottenham have obviously frustrated with low blocks come and break us down. This lot turned up in an open 4-4-2 formation and got absolutely demolished.
What do you mean by open 4-4-2?
Well, like, they weren't compact, didn't react when we won the ball back. Spurs played with a bit more intensity, pressing off the ball, the things that I said that we've been lacking. And obviously, once we got a couple in front, finally the team's playing with a little bit of confidence. But they were shocking, mate. So you can't read too much into it. Ask me again on Spurs after Sheffield United at home is what I would say to that.
Which is 2 weeks away.
Liverpool, Everton and Sheffield United.
Yeah, so 3 weeks away.
But I wouldn't target, unless something remarkable happens at Anfield and Goodison Park that I'm not particularly expecting, I wouldn't be targeting Spurs players, Kane, Son, for that captaincy in the Sheffield United fixture Saturday before Liverpool play Man City. I would rather look at Vardy at home to Arsenal.
Yep, I agree with you on that. Leicester always do well against Arsenal. So, and then one other question to wrap up on David Silva. Thoughts on David Silva? You're talking about doubling, tripling up on the assets from Man City. So, what are your thoughts on David Silva? Much better priced in FPL, you'd probably say, than in this.
Stop talking about FPL. We're not talking about FPL today. I think that's a question that people are asking who probably already own De Bruyne.
Yeah.
I mean, what price is David Silva in this?
Sorry, that's Bernardo. 10.8.
What's De Bruyne? 11.2.
11.2. There's
Right,
only 0.4 difference between them.
I get it. David Silva's had a good run. I think he's had the most attacking returns over the last 4 game weeks, maybe. I mean,
quite possibly.
He's had quite a few. A lot of them assists.
He's on 53 points. De Bruyne is on 60.
Yeah, and De Bruyne's also missed a game or two.
Yeah.
I think 0.4 difference. Just go De Bruyne, didn't you?
Yeah.
Did you need to overthink that?
I think he's too expensive here to double up, to justify a double up.
I think more the point is, to answer the question now, it's not necessarily a bad move, but I think that's more money tied up in your midfield than you should have in your Sky teams. Mm-hmm. I think if you've got De Bruyne, there's not room to be playing around with another one that's sort of David Silva's without making serious sacrifices, and that probably means Gilbert and another, whether that means staying long term with a forward who's relatively cheap like Timu Pukki, for
I've
example.
got Gilbert and Soyuncu, which is Soyuncu's cheap in this.
He is, yeah.
6 point whatever he is.
I wouldn't, because he's 2 million above kind of the lowest value in Sky, or 1.7 or whatever it is. I wouldn't consider that really low, whereas I mean, I don't know. Would you consider if he stayed in the time? Connolly's 5.7 up front. It just feels
Cheap.
like but it just feels like your power money needs to be in the forward positions. I feel.
The only other transfer that I'm considering potentially making is getting rid of Pepe. It would be Callum Hudson-Odoi.
Price?
He's at 7.8 million.
Yeah, decent. Not too bad.
Yeah, I will save myself 2 million. The only thing is I don't have anywhere that I'd spend it right now.
He's the sort of player, though, just as a caution on Hudson-Odoi, and I'm finding this frustration a little bit with Harry Wilson. He's not going to pick up the tiers,
shooting, passing, crossing, whatever else.
Not at all. Whereas, in spite of what I've said about McGinn and those difficult fixtures, McGinn in between sort of City, Liverpool, and a couple of other difficult fixtures they've got, he'll pick up a shot bonus or he'll pick up a tackle bonus.
Yeah,
somewhere along the line there.
He got man of the match though on the weekend. Did Callum Hudson-Odoi? So he may pick up one or two of those.
Yeah, true.
So far, he has picked up no tier bonuses
He
at
hasn't,
all.
He hasn't played, has he?
2.5 games.
But he's not going to.
No.
Like, if he's ever going to pick up a passing tier bonus or a shot tier bonus, likely to be Newcastle at home, really.
Yeah, you want to pass him tier bonus.
Everything was creative from him. I mean, on a different day, he could have had 3 or 4 assists at the weekend, in fairness. But I think there's possibly better moves to make. You want to see a little bit more. We commented on the main pod Monday night about he still hasn't scored a Premier League goal
yet. I think it's only a matter of time.
Mount is still the better choice.
Yeah, I have Mount already though.
Yeah,
the thing is, in this game, Mount is cheaper, 7.3 versus 7.8. But it's just where to go from Pepe, and I'd rather pick a player that I can rely on for a longer sustained period of time rather than having to chop and change in that category.
You had enough of him then.
Who?
Pepe.
He hasn't returned shit.
Some miss Monday night.
He hasn't returned anything, and the longer this goes on, the more it's going to be Emperor's old clothes, new clothes, whatever it is. Is he the real deal?
He's not providing anything for the investment at the moment at his price. That said, 2 home fixtures to come. I don't know if it's right to. We've kind of been asked about Pepe quite a lot. I don't know if it's right to come off now.
Has he? Is he a purchase that Arsenal made that they bought the player rather than buying a player to match the system or the way they want to play? Maybe.
No, I actually think it's opened up the idea of Arsenal trying to go to 4-3-3. I think it was the right profile of player they've gone to. He has flashes on the ball where he manoeuvres the ball around his feet and you go, he can play. I don't know if he's going to be one of them that ever equates to FPL assists or Sky attacking returns. Sorry. What you do in France is not necessarily going to equate to the Premier League, and I think we've seen that over and over. It's not Sky related, but although he was good last night, he was allowed to be. Like, I've got serious reservations about the real quality of Ndombele, for example.
Yep.
It's a big jump from the French league to ours.
Ligue 1. There we go. That's a rundown on SkyFF. I hope that's been useful for you if you are a Sky fantasy football player. We are going to be looking at a little bit more longer term planning as well now. Maybe next week we'll go into detail up until the end of January, where there's some interesting options of 2-for-1s and 3-for-1s and whatever, however you want to call it. We are coming back at you tomorrow with Clash of the Correspondents. If you hadn't heard already on any of our previous content, Foxy FPL, FPL Foxy, whichever way around, is on with Ali, FPL_Gaffer, Leicester, Southampton this weekend. Well, Southampton, Leicester, isn't it?
Well, Leicester's obviously very relevant to what's happening in Sky at the moment.
Of course.
It's worth a listen.
Yep, for sure. Followed by the final plan on Friday, where James and I will run down our final thoughts. It's a Friday deadline this week. If you hadn't remembered, you better remember. Was it 7:45 or 8 kickoff? Something like that.
Southampton Leicester's an 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, so 7 o'clock Friday deadline. So as soon as the Champions League games are out of the way tonight, I'm going to have my eye on what I'm going to be doing from an FPL point of view. Sky as well. I mean, obviously that's daily deadline, so do what you want to.
Before we go, captaincies this week.
As it stands at the moment, Vardy, followed by Sterling, followed by Aubameyang.
I will be Vardy, Aguero, De Bruyne as likely cover if we know that Aguero's not starting, and I'm pretty sure that I'll be going Aubameyang again Sunday as well. I'm not enamoured particularly with that fixture Sunday, but I still think Arsenal probably got the best of it. Yeah. And it's a shield because so many others will captain him.
Yeah, I suppose I could. If I do make the move to Rashford, then I may captain Rashford on the Sunday as a little bit of fun, but that will be a Sunday morning decision rather than any other time. And if I'm watching England, New Zealand drinking and then have a few before the Sheffield United game, it might be a drunken or hungover transfer that
John
I make.
Lindstrom in your Sky team.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. Look, I will never hear a bad word said about Lenny. I think everybody's got a soft spot for Lindstrom.
I saw apparently he changed his Twitter profile. He hadn't been on Twitter for like 6 years or so.
Yeah.
Since he played for England under 21s, he posted something. He had about 2,000 followers, and I think it was a couple of hundred actually, and then it doubled, and half of his following was FPL players.
Yeah.
And he's changed his profile from Sheffield United midfielder, FPL defender.
There's a few people that he followed on Twitter that I saw that had taken screen grabs. So I'm being followed by John Lundstrom now.
Class.
I think if he wants any lessons on how to use Twitter, we'll happily help you, John. Just give us a shout. That's the shows that we got coming at you for the rest of the week. Do stay tuned. Anything else to add, James?
No, good luck, everyone. Do let me know if my 4 transfer move is completely bonkers.
Yeah. It sounded pretty logical, but our listeners do have a way of actually fact-checking us and actually telling us that what we've done is wrong, so I'm happy with that.
Cool.
Ciao for now.
Cue music, man, child.
The Fantasy Football Show.